So most of my work started out as a theme with the drought, and as I started working on it and really committed to it, I realized that it's very difficult to make the drought look artistic and interesting. So without sliding into a documentary mode. So I didn't want to do documentary because I'm not a journalist photographer. So I switched it to more of a water awareness type of theme, including my shots of water, including shots of how we treat water and how the water progresses from the high Sierras on down to the valley, and its journey and how that all takes place. So our opening picture is just kind of I initially made it as just a cover for the theme, and a lot of people like the print, so I went ahead and printed it out, and it's just a composition of, this is sand that was, actually it's a lake bed of the Mono Pool lake bed. They drained it a couple years ago, and so I went down there and was kind of playing around in the mud and pulled that up. This is just a leaf out of my backyard, and the rest of it is just text that I've textured. Any questions on that one? Okay, can we go to the next one? Yeah, head rush is free. This is a compilation of two things. This is what they call Benton's Crossing. It's along Highway 395, and I now live in Mammoth Lakes. I grew up in Fresno and lived here for 50 years, and then I decided to move to Mammoth Lakes. And then this is a statue that's an Indian statue that's looking up to the sky, and this is called Look to the Sky. And what this is the beginning of our water's journey. It comes from the rain, and it trickles on down to the lakes and the valleys. So this was the opening picture for Look to the Sky. Any questions? Okay, so if you have a question, I guess just say, oh, I have a question about that, and I'll just keep going. And of course, once it starts raining, we get the drops of rain, and this is a picture of just a single drop of rain on a drip watering system. And the drip watering system was off, but it was just hanging there with a light behind it, and so I really like that one. It's very detailed. Go ahead. And this is a picture of the water in a raindrop or a drop of water in Dinky Creek. And Dinky Creek is not too far from Shaver Lake. And this is about 4 years ago, and you can see we're hoping it's going to rain some more, but I don't think it ever really produced much. But it's just a ripple of the water into our creeks, and it's also a part of our water's journey. Go ahead. Go ahead, Andrew. This is a picture of Horseshoe Lake. This is at about 9,000 feet, and the ice is melting. I just thought it was an interesting picture. The people standing there, and the ice and the land and the water all sort of making these curves through, and none of it is actually, it's just the gaps between the dynamics in this, and I just thought it was an interesting picture. So all of those lakes and drops of water get into creeks, and this is called All the Little Creeks, and it's just that, these little streams, especially up where I live in the high Sierras. There are tons of these little streams, and they break out with really any type of activity with the rain. So they go through all sorts of things where you don't think there's a creek, there's suddenly a creek there. So, and then they filter into the larger glacier lakes that are up there. Go ahead. This is Rainbow Falls, and this is again up in the high Sierras. It's near Devil's Postpile. It's a very short hike from Devil's Postpile, and this is the center fork of the San Joaquin River. So this is in the high Sierras, and it is right not far from Mammoth Lakes at all, and the San Joaquin River starts up there. And it is a beautiful fall. It's just huge. And they call it Rainbow Falls because if you catch it at the right time of day, there's a rainbow that comes across it. But I didn't catch that one. I was more interested in the falls than the rainbow. So, go ahead, Andrew. This is one of the glacier lakes. It's called Gem Lake. and it's about a 3 or 4 mile hike up into the high Sierras. So to get there, you start out at 10,000 feet and climb almost to 11,000 feet. So it's quite a long hike, but as you can see, the water is so clear, and it's because it's so high and there's no pollution. This is just from snow melt. There's nothing else that makes these lakes up there. And I took this picture just because it was so remarkably clear and the color was just so vivid. It was amazing. And that's where the start of our water starts accumulating. Go ahead. And of course, all of that water comes down and into our canals, and it provides sustenance to the people of the valley and the farmers, and it's a very important transition. It's not as clear by the time it gets down here, and this is just off of Albury, the bridge that connects you to there's a gun range up there. So this was taken several years ago when we had, about 5 years ago, we were having floods. And so this is part of that era, right around, just 5 years ago, Lost Lake was completely flooded over. You couldn't get down in there. Next. And of course, this is just a shot of some seedlings, but it's very important, the water, very important process of our water, and I didn't want to leave that out. It's the ag industry here, and we need to figure out, how we're going to keep things like this growing, because if we don't, we're all going to starve. So. And of course, this is more based on the ag industry. This is a piece of kale. And I was washing it, was going to eat it, and said, wow, that'd make a cool picture. So I set it up on my kitchen table and started taking pictures of it. And we had to go out to dinner because I didn't finish cooking. So I was too busy taking pictures. And of course, this is what happens when the summertime hits or the drought. This is a picture that's taken out in the Coalinga Hills. And it's amazing to me that this picture is clearly so dry and the water just sunk into the ground, which is pulled out. But the sunflowers are still thriving. So our area is clearly used to dealing with the drought. The natural flowers and stuff are used to surviving in this sort of circumstance. So the drought is nothing new to the valley. I grew up here my whole life, and there's a cycle. I have to admit, I've never seen it this intense before. So this is a very intense drought. But it is part of the valley life, is dealing with drought. And so water conservation, even when it's raining, is important, because eventually the drought's going to come back. It's not going to stay away. So I think that that's very important for us. Okay? This is a picture. It was taken with a 4x5 camera, which is the ones like Ansel Adams used to use. And it is in the middle of Indian Lakes. So this is what is left of Indian Lakes up by North Fork. And it was pretty sad. It was pretty devastating. And it was, there are big homes all around this lake, and this is the little puddle of water, and the life was just clinging to it. There were little turtles, kind of, you can't see them, but they were kind of hanging on over here, and it's just this little tiny puddle of water that was keeping everything going. This is a dry dock in Huntington Lake. So it's just a dock where the boats were, and I took this in the year that they had canceled the sailing, the Regala. So I went up there to take pictures and found all of this, and this was actually part of a class that I took, part of the assignment for a digital black and white class. Again, in Huntington Lake, this is the bottom of Huntington Lake. This is an old stump, and what I found fascinating about it was this rock. It looks like a skull, but it's actually a rock, but it just kind of the composition with the log going this way, the dunes coming this way, and then the mountains kind of, it's like a lot of different lines, but they're all curved lines. And then the skull just kind of just jumped out right in the middle of it, the skull rock. Again, this is in the bottom of Huntington Lake. And I was up there around Easter, so this is April. There should be snow on the ground. This shouldn't even be visible. So having it be around Easter, it was sort of a symbolism for me. But the fact that it's just the very bottom of a lake, and there's no water in April, and there's no snow. China Lake was bare, or China Peak was bare. And again, this is just dunes in the bottom of Huntington Lake. Just a devastating sight, really. If you're used to going up there and even in drought, seeing water in the lakes, there was nothing there. It was dunes. These are sand dunes in the bottom of a lake in the Sierra Nevadas. It just shouldn't be there. This is Lake Isabella, and this was last year in 2015. I want to say it was in May. And it was just startling to turn the corner and see all of these trees. The whole lake was just nothing but these trees. And people were fishing there. But it was just, this is all like shells from, like, I'm not sure what kind of marine life lives in there, but that was just crunchy from everything on the shells. And this is again at Indian Lakes near North Fork, and like I said, the life around there was just huddling around the little ponds of water, and these birds, they're pond birds. I never know what the name of them is. I'm not very good at that sort of thing, but they were all huddled around this little puddle, and so that's what I call it, the huddle puddle. And it was I didn't really do too much technique with the color and changing it like Andrew, because that was the way it is. I enhanced the blue a little bit, but not much. And all of these birds were just everywhere around this little puddle. This is a dust storm on where Owens Lake should be, just north of, it's in the area of Olancha, which is just south of Lone Pine. So this, a long time ago, when they started damming up the water on the east side of the Sierra Nevadas and shipping all the water down into LA, this used to be a lake, and now it's a dry bed of mostly alkali. Most of the natural lakes in the high Sierra Nevadas up in the area where I live all belong to the Los Angeles. Los Angeles has all the water rights there, so it's a little. I mean, I understand that people in Los Angeles need water, but when you see that a lot of our natural resources in that volume are going to one place, and then you go to visit that place, and they're washing their sidewalks and parking lots off with water, and they have lush plants around their commercial buildings, it really breaks your heart. It really does break your heart. Yeah.
One note on Owens Lake, last year when we were over there, I was talking to one of the engineers that is working on the lake, and they actually have a Army Corps of Engineers is making water injection ports all through the lake, so that the lake bottom will just stay as mud, because Owens Lake was one of the largest dust polluters in the United States, because the sill is so fine that any dust just kicks it up.
Yeah, it gets very windy over there too, very windy. You don't realize it till you get out of your car at a rest stop, and it'll knock you over. It'll kind of knock you off your feet a little bit. It's just gust of wind, and they do. Usually there are there's small, very shallow puddles of water out there. They also have cattle out there, but this dust storm was just really kicking it up. So
what are we looking at? Is this dust itself, or sand, or is it a vapor?
It's dust. That's dust blowing across where the Owens Lake should be, and where they've drained it down.
So it's backlit from?
It's backlit from the sun. So I was just driving there.
That's beautiful.
Beautiful shot.
Thank you. Go ahead. And this is in Madera County. So I thought it was very ironic driving around out on the west side. I was driving all over the Coalinga Hills, and then I'm coming back and I said, well, there you go. I mean, they can't even, this irrigation, nothing bad about the irrigation equipment. I hope nobody thinks that. It's the fact that they can't irrigate because there's not enough water. And of course, the equipment's name is Greenfield, so I thought it was just a very ironic shot. Go ahead.
Well, that's one of those rotating.
Yeah. This is the aftermath of destruction. In February last year, a wildfire broke out just north of Bishop, and it swept up this mountain. And I was actually driving to Mammoth Lakes in the middle of it. I barely got through. And these are all homes in here that were destroyed. All of these were homes. One of my friends got a phone call. She lived there. Got a phone call that they were evacuating her home. She left work, and before she could get there, her entire home was on the ground. I mean, just wiped it out. So it's very devastating. I don't show this picture in the area where I live because it really just tears people's hearts up. So, but you can see even 2 days afterwards, the destruction, and a storm was coming in. So it's kind of weird. The clouds were kind of hanging down and the smoke was going up. So I just pulled over the road and got that shot. But I don't show it in the area where I live at all. It would be too sad for the people there. This picture is actually a composition. This is near Mammoth Lakes. And the brush is actually, the brush is there. But again, this was maybe in February of 2015. There should be tons of snow there. I mean, you could walk around up on the trails. You could see the trails. And then this, just to kind of emphasize the flames that could take place there. This is a piece of bark texture that I just took a picture of and overlaid it with. Up there, you know, there's lots of, it's very difficult to live there. There are lots of different dangers, but the biggest danger everybody fears the most is the forest fires. It really does stay on your mind. It could snow a lot. You've got bears every night in your yard. The bears break into the houses. None of that is as concerning as a forest fire in this area. I used to work for a fire department, so instead of going to forest fire places and taking pictures, I stayed out of there, let them do their job because they don't need to be worried about me. So I grew up in the fire service, and so I know to stay out of there. And then I dispatched for fire departments for 20 years. So I don't follow fire departments or any of that. I try to stay out of their way. This is a composition. I used to work for the city of Fresno, and this is looking out of my office. I was on the second floor. And then this is a shot of a dry mud lake in Mendota, or a dry pond in Mendota. So what I wanted to emphasize here was this cloud was a unusual cloud formation that came over that day, and I took that picture. But this is, you know, if we don't start practicing resource control and respecting our resources, this is where it's going to be all the time for a lot of cities in California, not just Fresno. I mean, I had this shot. My roots are in Fresno, and I think it's a great town. So I didn't want anybody to think that I was putting Fresno down. I was more of a concern for Fresno and where things could go if we continue to waste water. And this is one of my pet peeves. This is my biggest pet peeve. So when I lived here, every Saturday morning, I'd go down to Woodward Park and down by the river, and I would take a plastic bag with me and I would pick up garbage. And all along the river, I mean, there were trees that were on fire sometimes. They'd, you know, kind of find something to put the water in on the trees to put them out because kids were partying down there, made a campfire, and they just left it. Garbage, graffiti, just a complete disrespect for the water that started in those beautiful Rainbow Falls, travels all the way down here to feed us and take care of us, And then this is really how we treat it. This is our drinking water. There are shopping carts in there. There's garbage cans. People drop, I know that people have left remnants of their meth labs out there. And this is our drinking water. This is our main source of life. And this is how we treat it. So I always encourage people to get involved in some way. And hopefully when people see this image, if they sow something on the ground, they'll remember this image and not throw it on the ground, or maybe pick it up. This is should be a huge concern for everybody. It really should. And of course, my last picture is this is the earth without water. This is actually a picture of this was a globe that was at Bodie. Ghost town. Through the school window you could see it was like a globe of the earth, and it had all dried out. So I took a picture of it, not knowing what I was going to do with it. And I'm always trying to take pictures of the moon, so I have about 1 million of those shots. But and then I just put them together and to kind of leave that image that that's our planet, that's our home. It's not, you know, a person's home. This is all of our homes, and we all need to take care of it. And I think that's it. That is it. So if I could leave you with a message tonight, it would be, you know, remember the images, and remember when the water's running a little bit, and you don't need it to run, or your plants really could go an extra day without the water. Just kind of remember these images, and hopefully it'll make a difference. So I think, personally, I'm not a protest person or anything like that, but I think that we can all make small changes that are significant. No change, if it's a better change for our life and our way of sustaining ourselves, then it is not insignificant. It is very significant. That's it. Any questions? Thank you.
You probably answered my question by your last comment, but no doubt you were interested in this kind of a concept and project before you even took pictures.
Oh, yeah.
Why you took these pictures. So starting from that point of view, what did this project do to you? How did it affect you beyond where you were when you started this project?
Well, I started looking, I mean, I've always grown up, leave something better than you found it. You know, don't litter, things like that. My parents are big game hunters, so they were always had us up in the mountains, and so I have a huge respect for nature. Growing up in the valley, and I grew up in a little farm community, always had a respect for nature, understood that, you know, nature has a way, and we need to work with it, not destroy it. But for these, I think the impact was taking the picture and wondering sometimes if it was too harsh to show people. But then I thought, you know what, I'm going to take it anyway, and I'm going to throw it out there, and if somebody doesn't like it, they can tell me about it, and I'm going to still do it. So I think just narrowing in on the lens on stuff really did make it more of an emotional connection for me. And I had seen yesterday some people made that emotional connection, especially with the picture of downtown Fresno. A lot of people really identified with that. So it's working a little bit anyway, so I hope that it continues to.
I was wondering if you could take 10 of your pictures, and I kind of looked at them from that perspective. You had 10 of them, and you could put those together in an educational package for a school system, for kids. Is there an opportunity there for you? Is there a need? Is there interest?
I think so. That's a very good idea, and I would not mind doing that at all and sharing it with the schools. These are manipulated photographs, so they are not of a documentary quality because they aren't untouched. They have been changed. But if it's just for a message, yeah, I think if it's just for a message that can get into the schools, I would be very on board with sharing that with schools, and really any public forum where the message is going to get out. I wouldn't mind doing that at all. That would be very rewarding for me to do that, because I just want people to take care of our world a little better.
In the Did you do that in the computer, put the 2 or 3 images together
Yes.
in the computer?
Yes, it's all done in Photoshop. I generally use, the two main things that I use are Photoshop and Camera Raw. So those are my 2 main digital tools. Sometimes I might cut them out, lay it out at home and see how it's going to go. And I have actually, you know, printed 2 pictures and put them together. But generally I try the digital way first so it's not so wasteful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.